She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Good morning, good life. Welcome back to Detail Therapy. In this episode, we're getting into the details about common habits of successful people. When someone on a success journey is going in any direction, what does it look like and what are they doing? What do they have in common with the rest of the success population, even if the goals are different? And then I want to share a book recommendation for you. It's just a quick 5-hour audiobook listen that is currently rocking my world right now, and I think it goes really, really well in tandem with this conversation and a great next step for your success journey. If you're new here, hello, my name is Amy Landino, and I will be your host. I'm a success coach and founder of Gatlu House, a resource dedicated to helping you go after the life you want. You can see all of our work, including the show notes for this podcast, by visiting detailtherapy.online. Well, hello. What are you grateful for today? I was thinking about that because I'm sitting here getting ready to record, and I actually moved my microphone down to my dining room. I was trying to get a change of scenery, keep things interesting in 2021. Like, hello, dining room. We don't sit here very much because why? Quarantine life. But I'm sitting here, and I actually had decided a couple of days ago to fill my bird feeder. And I don't typically buy bird feed in the winter because I just felt like that was silly. But then I got to thinking, I'm like, not all birds fly south for the winter. So let's just see if there are any that are hungry. And let me tell you, I'm sitting down, I'm getting my microphone set up, and I just sat here in silence, and all I could hear were the birds outside. I feel like I'm becoming one of those nerdy birders, like I'm a nerd bird or a bird nerd or whatever. They are so hungry. It's also sunny out, so I feel like they're venturing out a little bit more. But man, no one's feeding the birds apparently because they are lining up in my backyard. And I'm just so grateful that, I got outside of myself, tried to put myself in their little shoes, and realized that I could be helpful to them, and it's bringing me a lot of joy. It's something that I haven't really done since Lucy passed away, because she passed away at the end of the summer, and it was always something we would do together. I would take her outside, I would feed the birds. It was like kind of this like mini stop in my morning routine that I don't really talk about very often, the whole letting the dog out piece. And I guess I kind of missed it, and I forgot that, that relationship kind of tied into another one that I had. So anyway, that was something just thinking about what I was grateful for before I popped onto this podcast. Everything's like a call. I feel like I'm talking to somebody when I'm podcasting, but just wanted to get you thinking about what you're grateful for today. Because if you clicked on this podcast and you're genuinely wondering, like, what's Amy got to say about common habits of successful people, you are either feeling like you are a successful person, you want to make sure you're up to speed, because that's why I would listen to this episode, or you are somewhere in between or somewhere a little bit lower where you're like, I just don't feel like I'm doing what I should be doing, but I don't know what I should be doing. And that's okay. No matter where you stand today, I think this is going to be a fun conversation. I was actually inspired on this podcast because you guys know how I love a good calendar, and I have them in so many different formats. I've got my Google Cal, I've got my Good Morning Good Life planner, and one of the things I really dropped the ball on last year was having my little, you know what I'm talking about, the page a day ripoffs. I used to always have those. Like sometimes I would have 2 in a year, like one for home and one for the office or whatever. And I don't know how. I just ended up not having one in 2020. Dropped the ball there. But I guess that's so 2020 of me. And I picked up a new page a day calendar, a rip-off calendar, and It was the Jen Sincero You Are a Badass ripoff calendar. And so I'm inspired today. I'm actually reading you a list that I got from that ripoff today. So I want to make sure to give complete credit to her. I'm totally going to tell you what I think about this list, but I thought it was such a great list. I wanted to share it with you, especially if you don't have that calendar. I'll link to it so that you can check it out. It's just easily picked up on Amazon. No problem just picking up wherever you leave off, even if you don't order your page-a-day calendar until a couple weeks into the year. Who cares? Just go get one. It's like kind of nice. It's nice to have a little ritual every morning to go, what's the date and what new thing can I learn today from somebody motivational? So these are, according to Jen Sincero, on her page-a-day calendar for 2021, common habits of successful people. The first, take risks. I want to start this list with like some preliminary advice, because when you say things like, oh, successful people take risks, right? You might say to yourself, well, duh, like that makes sense. But I want the preliminary advice to be that we have to try to remove any initial feelings or any predetermined notions that we have toward these phrases as we hear them, because taking risks just as a standalone phrase sounds really scary, right? But if we try to look at it very objectively and say, okay, successful people in general, people on a success journey, generally take more risks, or try, at least make an attempt to take risks, rather than over consuming what the word risk means to you, or trying to download that on a level that makes you a little bit nervous. Look at it like it is just words on paper. Even if you have to write it down, just like take risks. Stop overdoing whatever your thought process has been when it comes to some of these words. And you'll notice there's probably a few more, and I'll use the word trigger in this situation. Maybe when I say something like take risks, that doesn't feel right to you and that triggers something negative in you. We don't want that to become a fixed mindset of you saying, oh, well, I'm not a risk taker, and so therefore I cannot become successful. That is a huge problem as we venture into this. And I know that you don't think that, but I don't want it to even be a subconscious thought process for you. I just want you to look at the phrase take risks a little bit objectively, because they can be measured in any way. It could be something hugely risky, like something I did in 2009, 2010. I left my full-time job. That was a risk that I took. And that's a big, scary risk when you're starting a business. But there are other types of risk. There are just, in general, the acceptance of having the ability to take risk on different levels, high and low, throughout your life, throughout your career, that more often than not, if you do them, you are more inclined to become successful in a capacity that you deem worthy. So I'm giving you this first one, but I'm also saying it in a way that I want you to not discount any of these as, oh, I guess that'll never be me. These are habits. You've got to get good at them over time. You have to practice. And the first thing that you do, in my opinion, is stop giving something false meaning, or meaning that doesn't necessarily have to be the case in every situation. Maybe you've taken a risk in the past and it didn't work out. That's okay. But did it not work out because you never took risky decisions into consideration again? Or is it just that you failed at that one thing and so you stopped taking those kinds of risks? I want you to put all of that predetermined notion, previous consideration, experiences of the past that kind of rocked you, put them away, and just take these habits into consideration in any capacity you may find them. So kind of gave you number one there, but I also wanted to give you a little bit of advice, because I do see that the words taking more risks, that can feel really scary. But when I look back, and I've never considered myself a risk taker, I have erred on the side of caution my entire life. But when I look at what I've done, there's been quite a bit that, because of where I built myself up and where I practice confidence, I was able to take more risks, even if I didn't realize how risky they might have been in the moment. Risks sometimes present themselves in ways that feel right to you then. if we over concern ourselves with what the rest of the world thinks of them, then we play up the word risk, and that's a lot of trouble. So hopefully that's helpful for you. The second one here says stick to their decisions. I think this is another one that is so big because we worry on a grand level about making decisions and having them be wrong. And guess what? It's going to happen on a regular basis. Happens to me every day, multiple times a day. And sometimes there's someone there to remind you that was a bad decision or a poor decision or the wrong decision. And sometimes it's just you saying, wow, that was not the right decision, Amy. Okay. And either way, that's going to happen. But there's also times where we make good decisions, where we decide, you know what, I just need to pick a lane here. I have to move on with my life. You do not need to know exactly what's going to happen on the other side of that decision, depending on what it is. I mean, maybe the decision to step in front of a vehicle that's moving is probably not going to be one you want to do, knowing what's going to happen on the other side of that decision. But making the decision, I'm going to start a podcast on this topic. And let's say that's something that's exciting to you. You want to start creating content. You feel good about sitting in front of a microphone and that you could really speak your truth there, but you worry that you're not picking the right subject matter. Make the decision, stick to the decision, and then measure the results from there. The reason why successful people stick with their decisions is because they don't have time to make all kinds of extra decisions, and they don't have time to stew on the decisions that they make. They only have time to make a decision, stick with it until it is very much determined it is the wrong move or the right move, so they can continue or not continue at all. So stick with your decisions. Next is set good boundaries. This is something I think that is so helpful for so many people, whether it's setting a good boundary with your communication of the family around you if you work from home and you're struggling to get focused, or setting good boundaries with how often you will scroll social media with yourself. There's so many different ways to set good boundaries, and it's definitely an important habit of success. I'm listening to the book I'm going to tell you about later. One of my favorite things that was brought up was that it's not necessarily that a thing you do too much is too much if it's not in the right direction. It's more about, are you spending major time on minor things, or are you spending minor time on major things? Or are you spending major time on major things and minor time on minor things? I watch a little bit of TV here and there, but I max out on how much I can really even bother with on a daily basis. Because if I have time for 3-4 hours of television a night, that's indicative of me spending major time on minor things. Because my job, my success, my life, my betterment has nothing to do with television. It doesn't. I enjoy it. It's a great break for me. And breaks are important. Not procrastination, but breaks. So I'm going to spend minor time on minor things. And I'm going to give myself the grace to do that. The next habit is to give back. I love this one. I think one of the most interesting things for me was I remember volunteering at, the during the holidays. I did this quite some time ago. Probably should do it again. During the holidays, you go to the grocery store and someone is standing at the entrance and they're ringing a bell, and they are typically with the Salvation Army, and they have that bucket where you donate money, right? Typically money is all they want in there. You're not supposed to put anything else. So you throw your quarters in if you walk out, if you paid cash, maybe you've got some change, or maybe you have a 20 if you're feeling really giving. And one of the things that was so fascinating to me when doing that was that at the time I was not 100% sure about where I stood with charitable contributions. I thought, well, if I don't have enough money in the bank, then how am I supposed to give to others? But in standing there and ringing that bell and standing with a couple of other volunteers, it was fascinating to me how much someone would give. And someone who you thought, oh, this person's like looking like happy, they're carrying a nice bag, maybe they'll, give a little something extra today. And they just kind of breeze on by. And I'm not judging anyone, by the way. I have breezed by these things in a moment. And I always say Merry Christmas to the person that's standing there because I know they're doing the hard work. But it's okay that somebody breezes by. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is the flip side of that. it was always someone who looked like they were there to get the milk and any super necessities that his family needed, but he would give the most amount of money, whether it was $5 or $10. It wasn't the quarters. It wasn't the change at the bottom of the purse. It was something significant. And what that taught me, and I think I've learned so much about this over time in so many different ways, is that if you never start to give back, if you never get into a habit of giving back, is it going to be any easier for you to do it when you've got millions in the bank and you say, oh yeah, I contribute 10% of what I make to, that's a really, really, really big financial decision. If you're never into the habit of how much you give over time, then it's never going to be one that you can really master getting into, and your ability to give back is sporadic, and you might lose track of it. And I know that anytime I've given back, whether it's with money or with time is something I've also had a lot of experience with sharing, whether I sit on a board in the local community that is somehow bettering the people that live here, or if I'm just, spending time at the soup kitchen, whatever the capacity of giving my time could be. It might be more fitting than a financial donation, depending on what the needs are. But if you never get into that habit, it's very, very hard to remember that just because you may not be in the best situation doesn't mean that you can't do something to help another. And it also is something that will hopefully pay you back in some way, whether it's fulfillment in your life or some other opportunity for whatever reason, because you opened your heart at that moment. So remember that no matter where you stand right now, even if you really can't give up the pennies you've got, that's okay. There's always a way to give back, and successful people have that as a habit. Another one is to work smart. This one and the next one is to delegate. I want to talk about these two together because I feel such a close connection to this advice. I feel like I have grown a lot in this respect in the last 5 years, but I've been working for myself for over a decade. So it's been a challenge for me in especially the beginning of the last 5 years, a lot more easy as I move along, but still something that is a learning curve. And working smart, meaning not being addicted to busyness. I was so addicted. I'm not going to say was, because it's an addiction, okay? Addicted. I am addicted to busyness. It gives me some fulfillment for sure, but it can also burn me out if I don't look at it for what it is. And so having the ability to delegate is so important, whether it's like, Vin, I need you to do the dishes. Like, it's just not on me today. I don't have it. I don't have it in me today. Or if it's, I don't have to edit my YouTube videos. I can pass that off to someone else, even though that was actually something that made me feel closer and more connected to my community at one point in time. I feel like I'm in a different place now. I want to be able to just let her rip and talk and focus just on the most important thing that I do and have the project come together because of a team effort where I have more room to breathe and more room to brainstorm and more creativity to share. But I need to delegate in order to be able to do that. So if you happen to be in a situation right now, especially if you're a newer business owner, and when I say newer, I say in the first 5 years, because they say that in business, you are a small percentage of the business population if you make it beyond the 5-year mark. Because once you've done that, you've figured out how to make money and sustain what you're doing. And then the learner's curve continues, because if you make it another 5 years, that's a big deal too, because that's a very, very small percentage as well. If you're one of the newer business owners in the first 5 years and you find yourself doing $15 an hour tasks in a world where you want to be making $100, $200, $300, $500, $1,000 an hour, ask yourself, why do I do this? Why do I have to do this? And if the answer is that because it's too hard to train someone or it'll take too long to train someone, you are looking at a very, 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 very short game. Very short game. There's a possibility, yes, that you do that thing and it's a bang out thing and it's awesome and you crushed it and you spent your time on it and you took the sacrifice on the financial side to get that job done as well as possible, but you never taught somebody how to do it. Yes, that one thing's going to be awesome, but what happens for every single one after that? What happens for this to become a real process in your business that gets tracked and carefully taken care of? That's the long game. If you have the audacity, even in your career, to say, I want X in my life, your life is long if you want it to be. And if we treat these goals like they are something that are just in this heartbeat, we will not get that opportunity to see it pay us back over a lifetime. So I challenge you to look, and if it's helpful for you, sometimes I will have a fake bracelet on my wrist that I look at. Literally fake, guys, okay? You remember the WWJD bracelets from the 90s? What would Jesus do? Pretend like you have one of those on, but pick your person. No offense to Jesus, but like I can't really speak to him in this respect. But if maybe your person is someone who is productive on a similar level to where you are looking to go in your life, and they have achieved some things and they've done some things, and you're like, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder how they got there. I will look at my little wrists and I will go, okay, what would Gary Vee do? Or what would Richard Branson do? Or what would Sarah Blakely do? What would somebody who owns their company, has been working toward building this empire, if they were in my seat, would they be doing the tasks I'm doing right now? And if the answer is no, and it's an opportunity that I have to start thinking of where else that task could go and how I'm going to figure out somebody else doing it, I need to get on it ASAP. I need to wrap it up and I need to send it off to someone else. Just wear your imaginary bracelet. That's my advice for you. The next tip is to constantly learn. I don't think I need to tell you that this is so vital, whether you're picking up a book or you're attending a conference or you're participating in the Gatlu Society or you're going to a training, whatever it is, constantly learn. Don't be a follower, be a student. Continue to be a student in your life. Never have learned enough. Trust me, I struggle with this. Sometimes I like to pretend like I know everything, and I get very frustrated with myself and not necessarily the rest of the world, but the rest of the world takes it the wrong way. I have to remind myself that I am a student. I can always learn something from absolutely anyone. The next tip is to stay disciplined. This is an important habit, a very, very, very important habit. Discipline can be really hard to sort of call upon. It can be difficult to say like, oh, I'm very, very disciplined. It can be difficult to say that about yourself if you don't feel like it's true. But it's because it's a habit. It's something that takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of reminding yourself, okay, if I'm staying disciplined on my brand new habits or my brand new morning routines or my brand new delegation pieces, like what am I going to do to stay disciplined with that? Whether you need a list of things to remind yourself or the bracelet to look at or the calendar appointments to ding you and let you know what you should be doing. Do whatever you can to stay disciplined. The next habit is to focus. We talk a lot about focus in this community because it's so, so important to not let all of the things around you distract you. The birds chirping are distracting me a little bit right now, but I am in a room where no one is with me. I am focused on just the agenda of items I want to talk with you about in front of me on my computer. My phone is on Do Not Disturb, and I'm going to get this podcast done, baby. Because you know what? If I don't focus on what I'm doing and it never gets done and I don't stay on deadline, I miss a beat with you. That's a relationship that suffers because of that lack of focus. There are probably other moments where it doesn't feel like the stakes are quite as high, but still the focus pays off because work fills the amount of time that it is given. So if you have the ability to focus, can we shave a few minutes off? Can we get a little bit more time back in our life? The next habit is to practice patience. This is so, so big and one of the major reasons why I read the Daily Stoic every morning. Because if I feel in a moment that somebody needs to be educated by me because they are doing the wrong thing, I need to remind myself that's actually not the case. Could I teach them something? Yes. Did they ask me to be taught? No. And if I just try to check them and tell them in my witty little voice what they should do instead, that's me trying to control the uncontrollable. I need to have patience because I'm too busy trying to figure out how to control my own choices. I need to have patience with myself and I need to route accordingly. You're listening to this because you know you are in control of your own choices. You need to route accordingly. You need to practice patience with yourself and you need to practice patience with those around you because no matter how insightful you feel or how educated that you are because you've been reading the books and listening to the podcasts and you know what the right path is, you can teach when someone asks you, but if you just try to let somebody know what's up, they're not going to listen to you. Everyone's going to have that moment where they take it a little bit personal, even if they aren't the type of person to take it personal. They'll take it personal in their own way. Can't control that. Doesn't matter how right you are. You're never right according to somebody else. Like literally almost never. And even if someone says, wow, yeah, you're right, I should change. Okay, cool. So what are you going to do if they don't? It's up to them. Practice patience. It's up to you. Practice patience. Surround yourself with ass kickers. I only say the word ass when it comes to Jen Sincero. Because, and also, is it Sincero? I hope I say her name right. She is just so fun in the way that she incorporates, this word into her work. And so I feel like I have the authority to say it. I don't typically curse, you guys, on any of my stuff, but whatever. I do it in real life. I've talked to you about this before. The struggle is real. But anyway, surround yourself with ass kickers. Why? Because if you surround yourself with complainers, what are you going to do? If you surround yourself with people who are broke, how are you going to feel? If you surround yourself with people who save a lot of money, how does that feel to you? What will that do to impact your decisions? If you surround yourself with people who talk to you in your ear every Tuesday and let you know what's possible, what do you think is going to happen? Surround yourself with ass kickers. You may not be able to move them into your house, would be particularly awkward at this point in time for you to do something like that, but you can surround yourself with their energy. You can find that way. Take the way that is offered to you. Reading a book is hard. Do it anyway. Surround yourself with that energy. Get those ass kickers in your life. Listen to their books on Audible if that is just going to be too much for you to sit down and try to read through a book. We all have our different learning skills, right? I actually take a very long time to read words in a book, but it's worth it for me because I feel like that is time where I am meditating over getting better at picking up the information the way that I can. And then I'm running around doing laundry and maybe doing some dishes or making the bed, and I'm listening to an audiobook during that time as well. There's always a way to surround yourself with ass kickers. Do not say that a specific tactic is hard. One of the things I think is not on this list and is a habit of successful people, but I think it can go into this category, is to read. So however you can incorporate that into your life, please know that if you admire anyone, even if they do not read books for whatever reason, it's fewer and further between in that case, I can promise you that. But what do they do? What do they do? Find out to absorb and get educated because they do something. Something happened for them to be on this trajectory. What is it? And also, even if they don't read books, there's a very strong likelihood they write them. So not really sure what's up with that, but read their books, okay? Next, talk about ideas, not other people. It's always better to be in a habit of talking about ideas than about people. Why? Because ideas are inspirational. Ideas make you think about what's possible. Talking about people always leads to some level of gossip. Even positive gossip is gossip. It's still just gossip. You can admire somebody and speak highly of them, and still that will be a lesser version of your ability to have a productive conversation than talking about ideas. How can you talk more about ideas than you talk about people or events? It's hard. There's no way you're going to stop talking about people. There's no way you're going to stop talking about events. But how often can you weigh the difference? How often do you talk about ideas? How often do you talk about people? How often do you talk about events? What is the percentage, and how can we shift it in the right direction? The next habit is get back up instead of give up. Remember, this goes back to patience. This goes back to taking risks. It is those people who get back up no matter what direction they go in. They could go back in the same direction they just failed in, and it could be because they have to keep trying, or it could be insanity. Okay, but at least they're getting back up. They're gonna learn at some point. Are you getting back up when you're taken down? The world is not level all the time. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. It's a matter of, do you continue with the equilibrium here and get back up? The next habit is to show up on time. This one I find so fascinating because I think there are such differing opinions on this subject matter, being on time versus just getting somewhere whenever you can. I used to have a very different opinion about this, that, oh, people will just expect me to be late because they know how busy I am and they know how my life is just so complicated and they'll be fine. But it is so indicative of how little you think of that person's time or that organization's time when you are late. And to show up on time means that you not only take their time seriously, but you take your time seriously. We're doing this a lot more in our organization, where meetings that we have with each other are held to a very specific standard. What is the takeaway here, and when do we need to get to it? Because we're not going to sit in this meeting for 2 hours. We need to get to an action item and move forward. So show up on time, end on time, give people your full attention and respect in that time. The next habit, know what's going on around you. It's important that you pay attention to your environments. I also think it's very important to focus. I think when someone is focused, I don't think you're oblivious to other things. There's a specific amount of time you need to focus. And then there is time where you need to be aware of what's happening around you. I would not be able to rightfully post on Instagram and do a good job of trying to communicate my story in the context of the environment unless I knew what the environment was like. So I scroll Instagram, sometimes just for fun, sometimes to kind of get a feel for, like, what's the new thing? Why do people pay attention to this? Why do people like to see that? What is interesting about this? I would love to hear, by the way, I don't know why I just went on that tangent, but it reminds me, I want to talk about Instagram best practices. If that's interesting to you, will you please DM me on Instagram and let me know? Because I really think that would be an interesting podcast. I'd like to record that next if you guys think it's interesting. So please, I'm not going to say the word interesting anymore. Please let me know what you think about that. Send me a DM at Schmitastic. The next habit, know what's going on with your money. If you're wondering why you're broke, is it because you don't pay attention to your spending habits? If you don't pay attention to how much you're saving, how much you're investing, how much you're donating to charitable causes? How many subscriptions do you have? Do you know? Do you know how much it costs you every month? It's amazing how much this escapes us. Successful people are trying to accumulate wealth to do something with it, no matter what you want to do with it. No matter what. I don't care what the end game is with your money, but trying to accumulate wealth, the only way to do that is to know exactly what's going on. If you can't pay attention to the $1, you're not going to be able to even imagine how the 10,000s and the 100,000s escape you. Know what's happening with your money. And the final habit that Jen talked about on this little list is go to the spiritual gym. And I love this. I think this is going to be my new phrase, because I always wonder how to talk about, the idea of spirituality, because it takes shape in so many different ways. And actually, there's a good example here of, reading self-help books. I said earlier that reading books is not on the list, and here it is. It's kind of baked into the spiritual gym. So maybe reading is a part of that spirituality for you, or exercising is a part of that, or meditating. Maybe it is going to church or meeting with your faith group. Work with mastermind groups. That's spiritual as well, because when you are working toward a goal and it is a part of your life and it is becoming a part of who you are you surrounding yourself with ass kickers? And are you masterminding with them what could be possible, talking about ideas? You can see where all of these start intersecting with each other. So lengthy list there of habits of successful people, very common habits of successful people. And I think if you want to continue to get more motivation on this is what I would recommend for you. I am currently finishing up the book, The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is one of the most famous and fabulous motivational speakers. And actually, this is kind of fun because I don't even think this is really a book, which is why I said it's a 5-hour audiobook. It's basically a series of different audios that he created, whether he spoke at a seminar or he recorded something, and they stitched it together into an audiobook, The Art of Exceptional Living by Jim Rohn. And the description actually says that this audiobook is a can't miss guide that shows you how to begin living life according to your own rules. You know how I love the sound of that. Catch up on your success and attain all you want and need. Let success expert Jim Rohn teach you how to master the art of living exceptionally well. I'm not going to lie. When you listen to this and there's like music segues and all kinds of stuff, you're going to be like, I feel like I am literally sitting in the 80s right now. Like, what is happening? But this man has such an amazing ability to motivate and coach. And he's just one of those people, those ass kickers that we really, really need to hear from. And so I really recommend it. It has been my energizing audiobook to kick off the year, and I'm just loving it. We will leave a link in the show notes so that you can go download, and please let me know what you thought of it. I would love to hear your feedback. I think, again, it goes so perfectly to hear just the basic, fundamental, actionable advice that we need that, you know, it really sounds so similar to this list that I found randomly at the same time from Jen, and how we do these basics on a regular basis to be on a successful path. Success is not a destination. It is a journey. Everything that is happening during this process is a part of your success. So if you think you haven't achieved anything yet, but you can account for a few of these habits, you are on the right journey. I can promise you that. And I highly recommend this book to help back that point up. I just want to give a big shout out to anyone who has left a 5-star review of this podcast. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this does to support our work. It is everything that we need to know that we are on the right page and making the best information and content and motivation for you in Detail Therapy. Thank you so much to all of you who have made the time. For a chance to win a Good Morning Good Life 12-month planner and some other special goodies from yours truly, pop over to the iTunes podcast store, leave your true and honest review of this podcast, and I will always announce the winner on this show so that you know if you snagged it. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. I'll see you back here next time. Cheers.